Hello everyone, it's Shauna back with another video. Today I want to do my January wrap-up. I know it's a little late coming to your screen, but here it is. January was a very good month for me. I don't know if it's because it's start of new year, new me, I don't know. But I did good, and I'm so excited to tell you about the books that I read. I'll start off with the first one. So it's called Mist's Edge by T.A. White. This book is the second in a series. The Broken Land series is what it's called. So I'm a part of a book club, and it's literally just me and two other girls. And we decided to just kind of start this book club because we all love books and have never had anyone to really talk about them with. So we started this book club, and we read the first book in this series last year. So I think it was end of November or early December, we read the first book. And we all thought it was okay. It was good in the guilty pleasure kind of good way, if that makes sense. So we decided to just continue on with the series. I actually started the second book in December, kind of rolled over into January. I finished it in January. Basically, this book is about, it's set, and it's kind of hard to explain, in that it's set in a fantasy world, but it almost feels a post-apocalyptic kind of world. The characters consistently talk about this thing that has happened, and we still don't know what that is, and I'm currently reading the third book as we speak. I don't know. Anyways, it's this thing, something happened, but they very rarely talk about it. They just say this thing happened. So I have been picturing it in a fantasy type setting. So let's just go with that. So this book takes place, it's centered around a girl named Shea. She is what you call a Pathfinder. So, and that's actually, the name of the first book is called Pathfinder's Way, just so you know. Pathfinders are assigned to specific towns. There are the Highlands and the Lowlands, and within the Highlands is like a lot of mountain range and very tough terrain. So what Pathfinders do is they're assigned to each city within like the Highlands, and whenever anybody needs to venture out for whatever reason, the Pathfinders will take them on these journeys, and they know the terrain, they have maps, they know how to draw maps, they know about the beasts that are out there, because there are these very like mythological beings in a way. And so we start off the first book with Shea in a town everybody hates her for some reason, we don't know, but we find out later. And she goes to save some people who really should have listened to her advice and did not, and ends up meeting two people who are part of the Triteri tribe. Triteri are based in the Lowlands, kind of further south in the Lowlands. And the Triteri are, what I picture when I think of the Triteri are the Dothraki from Game of Thrones. So picture that, and you pretty much have it. So she meets two men from the Triteri tribe. One of them becomes completely entranced by her and needs to have her as his own. Then she gets kidnapped and escapes and kidnapped, and it's like this whole big mess. That's not spoiling anything, I promise you. But it's about her journey and learning more about the Triteri tribe, who these people are, who this man is, who is a warlord of this whole tribe. And it's really good. It's really addicting in a trashy kind of way, but I don't mean that in a bad way. Trashy is not always bad. It's just a very it's like a guilty pleasure kind of thing. So the first book was great. We decided as the book club, we were like, okay, I mean, it's good enough. We might as well just continue on in the series. And so we did. So in January, I finished Mist's Edge, which was the second book in the series. And as I mentioned earlier, I am currently reading the third book. So, I did not get my rating. So this second book in the series, I gave it a 3 stars. I think the first one I gave it 3 stars as well. It's good. It's not the best book I've ever read. There are a lot of plot holes and issues that we all had problems with within my book club. But overall, it was a very entertaining and fulfilling read. The second book that I read this month was also kind of a shift from December coming into January, was The Diviners by Libba Bray. Yes, I have not read this series, but in my 2020 goals, I did set out to read this series because I've heard really amazing things about it. So the first book, for me, was a little hard to get through. So if you're not aware, The Diviners is so far a trilogy, but I think there's more coming out. I don't know. Basically, The Diviners is set in the 1920s in Manhattan, New York, and this girl, the main girl that we follow, Evie, is what they call a diviner. So she has special powers and special abilities. What Evie's ability is, she can take an object of yours or like a personal object of someone and learn things about them. Secrets, or just like mundane things, like what they had for breakfast or something like that. So she gets shipped off to New York to live with her uncle because of a fiasco that happened in her hometown, and she's living it up in 1920s Manhattan, going to speakeasies, jazz clubs. It's really interesting. I'm really fascinated by the 1920s, so that's why I really thought I would enjoy this book. And I did enjoy it. I don't want you to think that I hated it. I think it was a little too long. We did not need a lot of things, and the writing style felt very elementary. And I don't want that to be bad or sound bad, because I liked the book. I liked the premise of the book, and you do follow a couple of other characters who would be considered diviners as well, but don't really know what that means or what a diviner is. And I think this book was a good first setup. And I've heard people talk about the rest of the series is much better. Like, each book gets better and better. So I am going to continue the series. I am looking forward to reading the second book. I actually just picked it up from my library the other day. So I'm going to continue with the series. It was good. Overall, I felt like it was a solid foundation. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. And I'm hoping that it does live up to the hype and it gets better, because, like I said, it was good. It just is not, it didn't quite make it for me. The third book I read this month, I can actually show you. I have this one because Mist's Edge, I listened to the audiobook / read it online on my Scribd app, and The Diviners I got from my library, so I don't have those physical copies with me, but this one I do. Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm so excited about this book. The third book I read in January was Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book is just, I can't even, it was so good. I don't even know where to start. If you have not heard of Daisy Jones and the Six yet, you're probably living under a rock if you've not even at least heard the name, because there's so much hype around this book, but it deserves all of the hype. I promise you. This book is about a fictional 1960s, 1970s band that is kind of laid out like a documentary style. The way that this book is written is so easy to read. It just flows from one thing to the next, and it's just so addicting. I could not put it down. And I also listened to the audiobook, which was recommended for me as well, and it did not disappoint. So it follows a fictional band from the 1960s and 70s. This band got together and made an amazing hit album, but they only made one. And then after a show in Chicago, they mysteriously just disbanded, and nobody ever knew why. So this book is kind of set more in the present day, but it goes back. So it interviews all of the members of the band and people who were close to the band, and trying to figure out what happened. Why did they break up? You know, the lead up to them all meeting and forming this band, to recording the album, writing the album, going on tour, all the way up into their fallout with each other. So you know from the very beginning that the band, you know, disbands. Fun. Anyways, but this ride was so good. And there are just so many twists and turns that I did not see, surprisingly, because you would not expect this book to have twists, but it does. And it's so good. And if you haven't already heard, again, the audiobook is amazing because it has a cast of characters. So the way that this book is laid out, you have each person's perspective. So the audiobook was cast so that each narrator was a different voice and a specific character. So it was really good, and the voice acting was incredible. Really, really good. Love it. It deserves all of the hype. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, if you couldn't have already guessed. The next book I read is actually a poetry collection. If you haven't watched my 2020 Readings Goals video, which you should go do, by the way, I'll put the link down below. I set out this year to read more poetry. I wanted to give it another shot. I wanted to give it a try because I've hated poetry in the past. But I decided to pick up a poetry collection, and I picked it up randomly at Barnes & Noble. I just was feeling it out, trying to figure out which one I wanted to get. I was going based off of recommendations, you know, that I had seen in other people's videos, and I couldn't find any of those books in my Barnes & Noble for whatever reason. So I picked this one up randomly, and it did not disappoint. But it is Masquerade by Cyrus Parker. You can see I have fully tabbed this up, and I have officially gotten over my hatred of poetry with this collection. Oh my gosh. It was so good. And I don't know if this is just coming from someone who is just dense about poetry, but this collection was so good and so relatable. I was reading one right after another to my boyfriend sitting on the couch next to me as he's playing a video game or watching TV, because I just sat there and read this entire thing almost in one sitting. I had to force myself to put it down because I wanted to just soak it in. I just needed to let it sink in. So it's separated into different parts. There's a part 1, a part 2, and a part 3. I don't know if it has names actually. Let me see. Oh, they're just sectioned off into 3 parts. Okay. Each part is really good it's very linear. So it follows it. It's got a nice structure. It's got a nice flow. Like I said, I flew through it. There were so many in here that I just loved. It was so relatable, and it hit me in a visceral place a lot of the time. And I now even follow this poet on Instagram because I have to see what else he publishes. And his wife is actually also a poet, and so I kind of want to check some of her stuff out too. So that might be my next read video. Who knows? Either way, I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read, oh, you can see, don't get ahead of yourself. So the next book I read in the month of January is Lock Every Door by Riley Sagar. I don't know how I felt about this book. This was, oh no. And it's weird because in my goals for 2020, I wanted to read more thrillers, discover new authors who write thrillers and mysteries and horrors and things like that. And this is a thriller, if you haven't heard of it, and I'll go into detail about what this book is about. But it's surprising that I wanted to read more thrillers and horror and mystery novels this year and ended up not liking really much of the mystery and thriller books that I've read so far. And I've given 5 stars to the ones that were like contemporary and contemporary romance. And anyways, I digress. So Lock Every Door by Riley Sagar is a thriller, and it is centered around this girl. Y'all know I've book memory is so bad. Jules, her name is Jules. This book centers around Jules. She's our main character. She is down on her luck. This girl has had it rough from the very start of the book. She breaks up with her boyfriend because she finds out he's cheating on her. Like, this all happens within like the first chapter of the book. They break up and she is living with him, so she moves out of the apartment. And ends up sleeping on her friend's couch for the time being. Finds an ad in the papers. I think it's the papers or Craigslist. I don't remember. It's something. She finds an ad where where they need an apartment sitter. So basically what she'll do is just live in this apartment, and she's paid thousands of dollars to do that in Manhattan, New York. I mean, the start of every horror movie, book, what have you, that just does not sound good. So yes, she's made some dumb decisions, but I admit it sounded really nice when she went to interview, and you read through that section of what she has to do, and basically the only rules to this is she has to stay there for the allotted time that she said she would. So I think it was like 3 months or something that she was supposed to be living there, basically just occupying the apartment. She's not allowed to sleep over anywhere else. So like she has to sleep in the apartment every single night. And she's not allowed to have any guests over, even just to visit during the day. So obviously that's a little fishy, but she goes along with it. She needs the money. She's down on her luck. It's an amazing apartment. It's a very old historical building, and it's something that she's fantasized about for a long time. And actually, there's a book that's written on it in her world, and book, and it was something that she loved to read with her sister. So obviously weird things start happening while she's living in this apartment building. She meets some strange people. Strange things start happening. Apartment sitters, like other apartment sitters in the building, start going missing. She starts asking questions, and she starts coming across, obviously, all of the answers to those questions. So I had mixed feelings about this book because there was a lot of hype around it, and there still is, and I'm not saying it's bad. It's okay. It's very so I don't even know how to put into words how I feel about this book, but it was just, I was able to guess a lot of what was going to happen. This book just moved super slow for me and my personal taste, and I know people who have read it who don't necessarily like thrillers or are easily frightened truly love this book, and I think it's good for that. It's good for people who will find that they don't want to be kept up at night. I've heard also that this has kept people up at night, and I don't know why or how. I don't know if I'm just used to that kind of stuff, and because I like spooky things and I like weird things, and I love watching scary movies, and I love reading scary books, and I love being like frightened. But this it would not have kept me up at night, and it didn't. I did not lose a wink of sleep over it. But it moves very slow, and it moves too slow for me, putting aside the fact of like not getting scared or anything like that. I don't mind not getting scared in a thriller. That's okay. But the fact that it just moved so incredibly slow, I thought it would have a better bang at the end, and it just did not do that for me. Overall, the writing style is fantastic. But pacing aside, the way that this writer writes is actually really good. It just, the pace itself needed to be picked up. There needed to be a little bit more for me. There was nothing much to sink my teeth into, and that was just a little disappointing, and I was just a little let down. So for this book, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars because it did have, like I said, the writing style was there. It was just the pacing needed to kind of be reworked a little bit, and it needed to add a couple more plot points for me personally, for me to like really fully enjoy it. My watch is telling me to breathe. Okay, moving on. The last book I read this month was also somewhat of from December to January. So maybe I didn't fully read a whole lot of books in January, but I finished a lot of books. The last book I read this month was Imaginary Friend by Chbosky. It was actually a Christmas gift, so I was really excited to read this because, of course, it's Stephen Chbosky. Why wouldn't I read this? And it's a thriller. Anyways, this book is by the author who wrote Perks of Being a Wallflower, if you didn't already know. So there was a lot of talk when this book was released, which was very recently, just in the past year. So this book is very different from Perks of Being a Wallflower, so don't expect that going into it, if you couldn't already guess by the creepy cover. So there was a lot of talk about this book, and there were a lot of mixed feelings. So I kind of went in with not really any sort of expectation, and I kind of knew what it was about, but just wanted to kind of dive right in. So this book follows a family, essentially. So it's a mother and son, and the son is about 8 years old, I want to say. He is dyslexic and has a lot of learning issues, and the dad has passed away, her husband, and you find out how and everything. I won't go into that. But she is a single mother for a long time and then is in an abusive relationship with another guy. So in the middle of the night, or no, as he's gone during the day, sometime around there, he's not in the apartment. She leaves, she takes her kids, she packs their bags, they leave. They find a small town, she settles in it, she thinks it's gonna be easy breezy from here as long as he doesn't find her. And then the boy goes missing for a certain amount of time. 8 days? It was something. How long was this kid gone? Oh, and he's 7 years old. He is 7 years old. 6 days, that's when. Yes. Christopher, the boy, disappears for 6 days in the woods in this small town. And nothing ever happens in this small town. So they're all like, what is happening? They try to find him. They find him completely physically unharmed, but very much changed on the inside, and is now saying that he has this imaginary friend and this nice man who has helped him. We don't know who this nice man is. We don't know what Christopher is talking about. And it switches point of views from several different people, but the main people is Christopher and the mother, Kate. We follow mostly them and the sheriff a little bit of the town, who is trying to help Kate find her son, but also is very interested in her as a person. So, again, it was okay. It was just okay. I am sad it was not better. But with that being said, the writing style, again, of course, it's Stephen Chbosky. He has an amazing writing style. But it didn't need to be this thick. It didn't need to be this long. It was not called for. How much, and I understand why he put this much into it, but I felt, especially near the end, it was a chapter after chapter after chapter of thing gone wrong, thing gone wrong, thing gone wrong, when you think it's right about to resolve itself. There's really no other way that this can be resolved. There's really no other way these characters can do this or do that. There's no other option but this to happen. And so you expect it to end, but then you realize you still have 100 more pages left, and you're like, wait a minute, what else could possibly happen? So it was really just that. It was more of the ending section that I was like, okay, let's wrap it up, because this is not doing anything else for the story. Because there is a grand reveal of everything, and that took me by surprise. I will say that. That was a very good twist. that was an extremely thought-provoking, this is an extremely thought-provoking book. Once you hit that point, you just have to push through to get there. And the beginning was a little slow for me as well. I was intrigued because of the world that he was kind of building for us and how he was setting everything up. I thought was really well done. I know other people had issues with it because it took up until like 200 pages in or so to like really kind of understand everything that's going on, or to really like start pushing us, okay, what is this story about? But I enjoyed kind of that building up moments to it. It was a little slow, but overall I didn't mind it in the beginning. So I got through it. The middle was great. Going into the ending, the big reveal of everything, I was like, this is fantastic. Like, this book is so great. It really made me think, and it made me reflect on a lot of just things going on in the world today, and just in my personal life as well. It really made me think about all of those things, even though obviously it's fiction and a little bit of fantasy. But like I said, it was just the ending that was, it just kind of, it was meh again. All the thrillers this month, I swear, meh. Ugh. But overall, I did end up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. I'll be completely honest, I don't know if that's fully because it's Stephen Chbosky, or if it's because I really did, I think it deserved 4 stars. I'll let you assume what you want. Overall, this book really was good. It just fell a little flat for me near the end, unfortunately. I was disappointed by that. So those were all the books that I read in the month of January. Let me know down in the comments below if you've read any of these books, if you have strong opinions yourself about anything, if you disagree with me and think that, you know, a book that I said was not that great was actually fabulous. Please tell me why you think so, because maybe I'm missing something. I always feel sometimes whenever I don't like a book, because it takes a lot for me not to like a book, like a lot. So you'll see that I do give out a lot of 4 stars to things because I love to read, and if you take me on a really great story, like I'm gonna rate you well. So it takes a lot for me to hate or really dislike a book. So when I really don't like a book, if I'm really opposed to it, I feel like I'm missing something. Like I didn't, and that's just me personally. That's just my personal opinion about how I feel when I don't like a book. So I would love to hear from you guys if you loved a book that I said I didn't really care for. If you want to maybe describe why you love it so much, I would love to hear from you. I want to get more opinions on this stuff, and I want to have conversations with you guys. So I would love to hear from you guys in the comments, telling me what your thoughts are. And if you completely agreed with some of my opinions, I'd love to hear that too. And let me know what you're reading this month and how you're doing with your goals so far now that we're coming into February. That about wraps it up for me. Thanks again for watching my video. I really appreciate it. I would love it if you guys would subscribe if you haven't already. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It helps out my channel a lot. And share it with all your friends and all your book clubs and book friends. Spread the book love. That's all I want to do on this channel. So yeah, thanks again guys, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.